Okay, so we're at the point where we've created a, what did we create? Like this pause panel, right? So we can have a nice, a much nicer version of, oh wait, it was in the loader, 3D. So we can have a much nicer way of setting up these panels. And basically I've been pulling out and trying to isolate as much as possible the code that we need to change so I can make a minimal change. And normally I would go ahead and do the same thing with the rotation guys and make a separate panel, and I would do that because that would force me to make a more abstract version of this this panel that we're using right now. And it would be helpful too if later on the user decides to go back to using buttons or wants to use buttons with something else. It'd be nice to have a nice abstract class. But I really want to get to showing you guys the slider stuff. So I'm gonna forgo that for this set of lessons. So, but what I want to do first, because I'm getting ready to do a good sized new piece of work, is make another version. So I'm going to copy and go down there. Okay, so now we have version 4. And the piece I want to look at first is the transformer, where we have this action performed piece, because what we're doing right now is, remember, we're listening to buttons with action listener. But for JSlider, so is this yeah, for the JSlider class, what we need to do is add a change listener. So we add change listeners for this guy. Okay. So that means that our transformer needs to be a change listener. Now I could get rid of this action listener business because we're flipping over to from buttons to sliders, but I'm going to leave it because it's functionality that I might want to have again. So I'm just going to stick in change listener in here. And normally I would have gotten some kind of little red mark here because change listener requires implementation of a method, but this is an abstract class, so it's not giving me any hassles about that. So let's see what is the method that we need to override. So remember, when a button gets clicked, we have to our action listener automatically calls action performed, or the action performed method is automatically called on our action listener with an action event. So let's see when we have a change listener. So this is a change listener here, and this guy automatically implements a state changed method, and it gets a state changed event. Okay. So let's see here. It looks like, yeah, I'm going to try and copy on that. Let's see. So again, this is an override because we're writing the interface. I'm going to the interface method. So I'm going to paste in here from what I copied. Oh, it looks yucky. Let's see. Okay. And now I've got to write my change event, my state changed method. Well, my state changed method is going to be very similar to the action performed method, right? So let's see if we can maybe reuse some stuff here. Well, the main difference between the state changed and the action performed is in state change, well, in action performed, I need to take whatever the current value is, wherever the object is on, let's say, the x-axis, I have to get that value and then add it to whatever I was changed to. But with the slider, because remember, it's every time it's adding or subtracting 0.1, right? So to whatever the value is, you're adding or subtracting something. So, or adding plus 0.1 or adding minus 0.1. With the state changed, when you set that slider to 0.7 or to 7 or 8 or whatever, it's going to automatically go to that value. So you want, this is just going to be one value. That's going to be, instead of adding two things together, instead of adding the current value plus an increment, we're just going to take whatever is on the J slider, and that's what we're going to put in here as our second argument to set value. Okay, so let's take a look for a second. I just want to remind myself, first let me make sure I'm running the, I want to remind myself of what the range of the axes is, and I think a fast way to do that is just to look at it. So yeah, it looks like it went from minus 10, so from 10 to minus 10 looks like, and yeah, from 10 to minus 10 on both sides. Okay, so our slider is going to go from minus 10 to 10, right? So let's keep that in mind. I'm just going to write a note here to remind myself. Slider goes from minus 10 to 10. Okay, so the way I things work with the button is I get the change that I'm supposed to make from the button. I get my transform group. I create a new vector. I get the translation vector, and then I set the value. So it looks like this. There's this upfront stuff that needs to happen. Now I'm going to need set translation vector as an input to state changed, and I'm going to need some other value here. So let me just put up a start thing here. So I'm going to need a value that I'm going to get from this slider, and we'll see how we get that from the slider in a second. Then I'm going to need to do some other stuff, and then I'm going to need to set value to whatever that value was. Okay. Oh, not an int. What does it want to be? A float. Okay. So that's a float. Oh, still not happy? Oh, it may not have been initialized. Well, let's just set it to 0 for now. Oops. Okay. And what now? Okay, float. All right, so, and then I'm going to want to do the other junk. Okay, so that's this stuff down here. So what can I just pull out? Well, let's see. So the value is going to come from the slider. So let's see how we get the value off of the slider. J slider. Oh, yeah. Because, okay, so we're going to get a change event, right? First of all. So our our parameter here is a change event. So what does the change event give us? Change event. Oh. There it is. Okay, so the change event has this get source method. Okay, and that'll get us the object that the change event came from. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. Seems like I should kind of cut it here because I'm running long. So what we'll do next time is start looking at change event and see what we need to do to get the value from the J slider.